A sharp click echoed across the control room of the USS San Jacinto, a fast-attack nuclear submarine sailing deep beneath the South Pacific. Then came a metallic clunk, followed by an alarm that wasn't supposed to sound. Every head turned, every movement froze. This was supposed to be a silent drill. The sound wasn't catastrophic, but it was loud enough to get someone killed. Let us know in the comments which branch of the military you admire most. Commander Randall Hayes slowly turned toward the source. He didn't shout. He didn't ask who had done it. His steel-gray eyes already knew. Seaman First Class Jonah Briggs, standing rigid near the ballast override console, was the only one not moving. His hand hovered over a switch that should have remained untouched. The red indicator light blinked once, like a heartbeat under pressure. Hayes walked forward, slow, deliberate, like the current beneath a sinking ship. "Seaman Briggs," he said, voice level. "Yes, sir," Briggs answered, throat dry. "You disabled primary ballast compensation mid-drill." "I thought the secondary valve pressure was off, sir." "You thought?" Hayes repeated without inflection. The room was silent. Even the reactor hum seemed to dim. "You guessed," Briggs tried to explain. I saw the gauge dip. I thought if I routed..." "You touched a control system." Hayes cut in, still calm, without a command, in silent mode, during a live drill. He turned toward the console. The switch was still in override. Hayes flipped it back to standard manually. It took 1 second. That's how close death often is. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam his fist. Instead, Hayes turned to the crew. "This submarine holds 138 men and women. Every one of them trusts that the person beside them knows when not to touch something." His gaze settled back on Briggs. And more importantly, when to do absolutely nothing. Then to Chief Warrant Officer Lansing at Sonar. "End the drill. Lock the helm. Briggs is off the rotation. Effective immediately." "Yes, sir." Hayes looked once more at Briggs. His voice still hadn't risen above a conversational tone. "You're assigned to waste management detail. 4 shifts. No rotation." Briggs opened his mouth. "Don't speak. If you're lucky, the silence will teach you more than this drill ever could." Briggs lowered his head. As he stepped out of the room, every eye in the control center followed. Not with cruelty, but with weight. Mistakes didn't just echo in steel. They traveled through reputation. Down in the sanitation bay, the smell was constant. Bleach, oil, sweat, and heat. Briggs cleaned filters, unclogged backup valves, and drained tanks in a suit one size too large. Gloves sweated through. His boots stuck to the floor. Nobody talked to him, not out of malice, out of understanding. He had crossed a line. Now he had to walk it back, one valve at a time. Meanwhile, back on the bridge, Lansing reviewed the incident log with Commander Hayes. "Sir, diagnostics show no fault. The dip on the gauge was normal fluctuation. Briggs reacted on instinct." Hayes nodded. "That's the problem. He's young. So is this boat." They paused. "If we don't teach them how to listen to the silence," Hayes added, "they'll fill it with panic." Later that evening, during system-wide quiet ops, a subtle ping appeared on passive sonar. Just one, then another, barely above the ocean's own rumble. "Unknown contact," Lansing reported. "Bearing 221, no transponder, no propulsion wake." "Could be a drifting buoy," Hayes said, "or something watching." "Range?" Grace asked from the nav panel. 2,000 meters. Depth matches ours. Hayes tapped the chart overlay. "We're in an unmapped trench." Grace raised an eyebrow. "So if someone's following, they know the sea better than we do." Commander Hayes gave a single order. "Drop 5 meters. Drift. Total silent running." Lights dimmed. Power dropped. Air handlers shut down. The USS San Jacinto became one with the water. Briggs, still below deck, wiped his hands clean just as the overhead lights shifted red. He didn't ask what was happening. He knew. He stood still in the middle of the utility bay, surrounded by silence, and for the first time, he respected it. Back up top, the contact remained motionless. Then, after 17 minutes, it blinked. Off sonar. Just gone. Disengaged? Grace asked. Or cloaked, Lansing replied. Hayes remained quiet for a long moment, then stood up from his station. Whatever it was, it saw us respond. He turned to Lansing, and it saw us correct ourselves. The following morning, the USS San Jacinto cruised beneath the thermocline, silent and unseen. No more sonar pings, no sudden anomalies. But Hayes didn't trust the calm. The sea had a way of pausing before it punished. In the mess, the atmosphere was tense, but stable. No one mentioned Briggs. No one needed to. Everyone had seen what happened. They knew the cost of carelessness. Down in Bay 6, Briggs was triple-checking a water filtration sensor that didn't need checking. Every readout was green. Every valve was within range. But he stayed, crouched beside the panel, staring at the data, then at the faint hum vibrating through the pipe. And then he noticed it, a soft oscillation, not constant, almost like a heartbeat. He leaned closer. It didn't match the reactor rhythm or the coolant loop. It was slightly delayed, like something foreign, echoing inside the system. He called it in. Engineering to command. This is Briggs. I've got a repeating micro-rhythm on filter valve 6B. Internal signal. Might be feedback, or something riding our flow. There was a pause on the line. Then Hayes' voice. Stay on station. Don't interact. Don't move. Copy that. Briggs didn't move a muscle. 5 minutes later, Commander Hayes and Chief Lansing were at his side. Hayes knelt beside the sensor console, listening. Then he felt it too. Just a tiny shift in pressure every 25 seconds. Barely enough to rattle the screws. Internal mimic, Lansing said quietly. Whatever it is. It's inside the flow, Hayes nodded. Or watching it. They returned to the bridge and isolated the subsystem. Grace began a closed-circuit diagnostic, rerouting filtration without alerting any external monitors. What are we looking at? She asked. Not sure, Hayes replied. But whatever it is, it knows our systems. It knows how to hide. And it knows we're watching. That sonar glanced up. Sir, there's something else. Go ahead. I went back through the logs, the sonar pings we got yesterday. They weren't random. They matched our silent drill intervals. Every time we dropped power, they pinged. When we held still, they vanished. Patel leaned in. It's not tracking our position. It's tracking our behavior. Learning, Hayes said. Pattern analysis. That's not basic recon. That's AI-assisted surveillance. Grace looked up. Sir, do you think it's manned? Hayes didn't answer right away. No, I think it's worse. That night, Briggs was reassigned to station shadow duty. No direct responsibilities, just observation. It was a quiet message. You're not ready to act, but you might be ready to learn. He took a position beside sonar and watched Ung work. He studied the screens, trying to understand what she saw. The waves, the echoes, the patterns. Hours passed. Then, Briggs noticed something odd. Ma'am, he said quietly. These two lines, they're not from the same source. Ung turned. What do you mean? He pointed to a faint signal train. This one's consistent, steady pulse. But this one, it's off by milliseconds, lagging behind. Ung's eyes narrowed. She keyed in a delta scan. The second signal didn't just lag, it followed, like an echo. A delayed mimic, Lansing confirmed it. Second contact confirmed. Same frequency, different timing, shadowing the primary. Hayes stared at the screen. They're duplicating. One scans, the other listens. One distracts, the other records. Grace murmured. They're not alone. No, Hayes said, and they never were. With that, he gave the order. All departments to level 1 passive defense. No communication. We become a ghost. USS San Jacinto vanished from the grid. But the watchers remained. This wasn't a standoff. This was a classroom, and the crew was the subject. Later, in a quiet moment off rotation, Hayes walked down to auxiliary. He found Briggs alone again, checking circuits. You heard something no one else did, Hayes said. Briggs stood at attention. Sir, I wasn't trying to interfere. Hayes held up a hand. You didn't interfere. You observed. That's progress. He stepped closer. You made a mistake. But you didn't run from it. You didn't argue. You listened. That's the beginning of discipline. Briggs stayed silent. Hayes added, Stay sharp. I may need you again. As the commander walked off, Briggs returned to his seat. This time, he didn't feel watched. He felt useful, and for the first time since boarding the Nevada, he didn't try to prove anything. He just paid attention. The USS San Jacinto drifted beneath a shelf of cold water, using the thermocline to disappear. The mimic signals had faded again, but no one on board was foolish enough to believe they were gone. Commander Hayes stood silently in the control room. Around him, sonar hummed with low confidence, engineering ran checks in a whisper, and navigation waited for any shift in command. The air was tight, not fearful, focused. Grace approached from diagnostics. Sir, there's something else. We found minor pressure flux in the port coolant line, timed exactly with the last mimic ping. Hayes turned. Internal? No. External stimulus, internal response. They're touching the hull again, she nodded. But not physically. It's acoustic energy. They're looking for a weak spot. Lansing leaned in. Testing our skin like a surgeon finding a vein. Hayes thought for a moment. Then, redirect engineering focus to coolant integrity. Reinforce feedback loops. I want the hull sensors isolated and logged in real time. He looked at sonar, and someone get me Briggs. The word passed fast. In 3 minutes, Briggs stood at attention in the control room, not because he was ordered to, but because he ran. Sir, Hayes didn't waste time. You spotted the echo pattern. Now you're going to help us lie. Sir, you're going to work with sonar and acoustic relay to generate a false signature, a heartbeat, something real enough to confuse them, but not us. You want to create a decoy system inside the ship? Exactly. Briggs blinked. You trust me with that? I trust that you've learned to shut up, slow down, and look. Ung handed him a data pad. Here, you'll work here. No, external signals. Only internal pulse injection. Map it to ballast rhythm and power fluctuations. Briggs sat down, focused, started plotting. The rest of the crew barely noticed the quiet young sailor pressing keys, adjusting frequencies, layering. Mimic pulses just wrong enough to be believable. 35 minutes later, the mimic signal returned. Ping, pause, ping. Then, hesitation. It was listening to something. Contact's holding, Ung said. They took the bait, Lansing added. Grace monitored internal diagnostics. They're tracking a system that doesn't exist. Hayes smiled for the first time in 2 days. Good. But then Ung's console flashed red. New spike. High frequency. Origin. Above. Fast. Second contact? Hayes asked. NG confirmed. Smaller. Quicker. Intermittent pings. They're overlapping our decoy with a new scan. They're testing our fake system against our real one, Grace said. They're looking for the lie, Hayes muttered. Then silence again. No more spikes. No more sound. Briggs stood. They saw it. Ung whispered, no. They believed it. Hayes paced. Then they'll respond. One of two ways. Either they withdraw. He stopped. Or they attack. A low rumble passed through the hull. Not loud, not sharp. Just a vibration, the kind that Came before something arrived. Seal the sub, Hayes ordered. I want every compartment locked and every system in ghost mode. Lights dimmed, doors sealed. Power rerouted. USS San Jacinto became a shell of itself. In auxiliary control, Briggs sat beside an analog readout, watching pressure gauges and audio sensors like a conductor scanning sheet music for a false note. Then he saw it. A sudden spike on a low-frequency relay exactly where his decoy signal looped. Only, it wasn't his signal. It was a return from outside. He called it in. Commander, I've got reflection, portside midline, same signature as the loop, but delayed. Playback, Hayes said. NG streamed it across the control room. They all heard it, a return ping, repeating Briggs's fake signal back at them, imperfectly, like a voice mocking a whisper. They're not just listening now, Grace said. They're talking. Hayes didn't flinch. They think it's a real system, and they're answering it. Patel looked around. So what do we do? Hayes looked at Briggs. You built it. You answer back. Briggs stared at the screen. Sir, I don't know what to say. Then say nothing. Just let them keep thinking it's alive. He turned to the crew. We're not in a standoff. We're in a conversation. But it's a conversation we control. For the next hour, Briggs adjusted signal strength, dampened returns, and looped. A soft fault signal, just enough to look like a weakened subsystem. And each time, the unknown entity sent a reply. Mimicry, repetition, study. It wasn't hunting, it was learning. And for now, it was satisfied. Then, silence. No more returns, nothing. Contact has vanished unconfirmed. All sectors clear, everyone exhaled. Hayes nodded. Hold station. We wait 2 more hours before moving. Let the ghost drift. He turned to Briggs. Well done. Briggs didn't smile, just nodded. Thank you, sir. Hayes leaned in. You're not here to be right, Briggs. You're here to be ready. Briggs understood. 3 hours passed, then 4. No new pings, no motion on sonar, just the deep hum of the USS San Jacinto holding station 900 feet below the surface of the Pacific. Still, unmoving, breathing like a sleeping giant. The crew had returned to quiet, duties rotating in silence. The air felt less tense, but not relaxed. A different kind of tension now, like standing still in a minefield and not daring to take the next step. Commander Hayes reviewed internal diagnostics for the 5th time. No breaches, no leaks, but still, something didn't sit right. Then Ung spoke. Sir, there's something strange. Hayes turned. Go on. I ran a full sweep of our acoustic data going back 72 hours. That second contact, the smaller one, it never scanned us directly. Then what was it doing? Ung looked up. Recording us. Patel leaned in. Recording. What exactly? Everything. Our internal signals, our echoes, our drill timing, even our electrical cycles. I think it was copying us. Not spying, replicating. Hayes absorbed that in silence, then Lansing, softly. Sir, what if it wasn't here to hurt us? Hayes didn't blink. Then it was here to become us. The entire room fell still. NG added. We sent it a fake system. It responded. Then it mimicked the fault response. Patel asked, what would happen if it encountered another ship? And used our patterns, Grace murmured. It would know how to fake being us, or confuse someone else into thinking it was us. Hayes stood slowly, eyes distant. They didn't test our weapons. They tested our character. No one moved. No aggression. Just mimicry. They were looking for something specific. Briggs, who had remained quiet since his last signal loop, finally spoke. They wanted to know how we respond when someone makes a mistake. All eyes turned to him. Hayes nodded slowly. They wanted to see what kind of people we were, what kind of system we are. He looked around the room, and we showed them. Later that evening, as USS San Jacinto resumed its silent patrol path, Briggs was officially reassigned back to communications rotation, not as a reward, but as recognition. He had passed through fire and learned to breathe underwater. Hayes stood beside him at the console. "You stayed steady." Briggs nodded. "I tried. You succeeded." Hayes turned to leave, but paused. "You know what discipline is, Briggs?" Briggs answered carefully. "Following orders, even when it's hard." "No," Hayes said. "Discipline is doing nothing when everything in you wants to do something stupid." He smiled, barely. "You're part of this crew now, not because you're perfect, but because you listened." That night, no one celebrated. There were no announcements, no pats on the back. Just silence, the kind of silence that meant survival. And somewhere far above them, in the black waves of the Pacific, something else drifted away, quietly carrying the lessons it had learned from a crew that held its breath and didn't break. On land, mistakes can be forgotten. At sea, especially beneath it, mistakes echo. They ripple through steel, through systems, through trust. But sometimes, the greatest strength isn't action, it's restraint. Seaman Briggs thought the Navy needed his quick thinking. What it needed was his stillness. And Commander Hayes didn't scream, didn't shame, didn't throw him away. He gave him silence and let him learn. Because discipline doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes, it sounds like nothing at all. What would you have done in Commander Hayes' place? Would you have given the rookie a second chance, or let the ocean teach him the hard way? Let us know in the comments. If this story of deep-sea discipline and silent leadership moved you, subscribe to Authority Watch and tap the bell icon so you never miss the next mission. This is Authority Watch, where silence isn't weakness, it's command.